Hello and welcome back to the channel, welcome back to another video. This one is player rankings for Game Week 31, where myself and George from Ingenuity Fantasy, which if you don't know about Ingenuity Fantasy, the link is in the description, ingenuityfantasy.com. All sorts of good stuff on there. You've got the player rankings that we're talking about today, you've got articles on captaincy, differentials, etc. You've got Transfer Wizard, which is really cool. Put in what position you need, what budget you've got, and it will give you a list in order of players to consider. And you've also got match stats from Opta, so do check that out. But yeah, this week's video, player rankings with myself and George, so let's get into it.
Right guys, welcome back to the FPL player rankings with myself and Brad. Pretty quick turnaround this week actually. It's also worth mentioning that the majority of our lists and research were done yesterday. So there is potentially quite a lot of chopping and changing, so do bear with us. Either way, we will get started straight away with the cheap defenders. So not much change at the top. The Newcastle boys still there for obvious reasons. I've got Burn for the set piece threat. Brad has Livramento because he's a fullback and gets forward, so not much to be said there. But where it gets interesting, Brad, you have two Brighton players in there ahead of some other decent players. I'm assuming that's just fixture based.
Yeah, I do like their fixtures quite a lot, and I think their fixtures are at useful times as well. The good fixtures are at useful times, if that makes sense. So I know quite a few people are considering a bench boost in 32 because Palace and Newcastle double, and if you've got like a Dunk or a Stupinand on your bench, they play Leicester at home that week, so that's great. Also, if people don't have a free hit, then Brighton play West Ham at home in 34. Again, pretty useful. So yeah, their fixtures are just good, and their good fixtures are at useful times.
Yeah, I mean Estupinian as well. We know almost a sort of he's had a couple legendary FPL moments. So the attacking output is there. Again, I think I said this earlier in the season when he entered your list as well. For me, I just need to see a bit of that output first. But you're right. I mean, Brighton do seem to have struck form right again. It's weird considering how much people are talking about Bournemouth and how brilliant Bournemouth have been. I mean, Brighton are higher in the league than Bournemouth. Brighton are doing way better, and they've been doing it sneakily. So yeah, definitely.
I'm pretty sure I saw that Bournemouth haven't won in their last 5-6 games at all.
Really? Yeah. See that.
I could be wrong there, but
there you go. I mean, Brighton just have a habit of being sneaky good in that sense.
Yeah.
So,
plus,
I mean, yeah.
Stupinyan, I don't think there's really anyone else who can actually. I mean, they're struggling for fullbacks at the moment.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure there's anyone who's going to take his spot. That's so minutes wise, he's good. Is what I'm getting at.
Yeah. No, 100%. So, I mean, definitely. I think Brighton, as you said, playing in 34, they offer a bit of safety and stability as well with those fixtures and the non-blanking. So, Brighton definitely not bad options at all. Which then leads us on to these Palace options. So I think the problem here with Palace, even though I think Mitchell and Lacroix and Gahey, I do think they will score decent points, not least because of how many fixtures they have in this time. But I just don't see you wasting a Palace spot on them. And I think that's the only bit. So even though I have them high, that's the bit I struggle with.
Yeah, me too, to be honest. Especially as their fixtures are bad. They've got a lot of fixtures, but they've got more fixtures than anyone. But their fixtures are bad for defenders. So you're looking at Brighton, City away, Newcastle away, Arsenal away at one point. So defenders wise, that's not good. Whereas midfielders, forwards, and even Henderson in goal to some respect is better off in those fixtures. Also, the likes of Mitchell's gone down in my list because he came off in the 57th minute last night, which is just rough. You don't want that. So I just think there's if you're going to have triple Palace, and unless you have Munoz, I don't see the point in any of the others.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you've got Eze, Saab, Munoz, Mateta, Henderson, all should be in line before them. So yeah, you're right. Just don't see a viable route to having them in your team, really. Yeah. And then, so moving on to an area where there may actually be, slightly more discussion, that's the premium defenders. So we've just heard the news that Gabriel He's going to miss the rest of the season.
I think it is, yeah.
Yeah, I think So Gabriel's going to miss the rest of the season, which, I know a lot of people have subbed him out, but that's exactly what this list is for. The players at a similar price range, who also have high potential to return. Now, one I do want to start with is Trippier. So I understand, again, Newcastle have a similar thing to Palace, where you have a lot of other spots that you'd want, like you have Murphy, you have Gordon, you have Isak, for example. Trippier, I think, could offer a nice differential option. He's pretty much nailed now. Lewis Hall's out for the rest of the season. He's going to be on plenty of set pieces. Eddie Howe loves him, so he's going to be giving him all the set pieces he can to try and get his confidence back. Quite a good, sneaky differential option.
Yeah, I was seriously considering him on wildcard. I wildcarded in 30 last week, but I was seriously considering him. I just couldn't really afford him, which I think is the issue for anyone that is considering him. Really, it's just that he does offer more than Burn and Livramento, but does he offer over $1 million more? Not sure about that, especially given obviously Trippier probably will keep these set pieces, but when Gordon's back, maybe they'll share. We can't really know.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, it's a bit up in the air, but if it was the route you wanted to go down, there is definitely a pretty substantial ceiling there. So it's a gamble that definitely could pay off. And then, so leading on to another attacking-minded fullback, Cucurella. Now, Cucurella has been flirting on the edge of our list, and then the middle of our list, and then sometimes getting near the top of the premium list. I mean, he's kind of in Chelsea's last couple of fixtures almost been holding them together, and he's retained his really attacking positioning. Do you think with Jackson and Palmer coming back, do you think Cucurella's stock could go even higher?
I don't know if it can go higher at the moment, to be honest. I think that he's the last few games have been as good as it can get, really, for him.
Yeah.
The next 5 fixtures are brilliant, to be fair. I mean, besides the 5th one, you've got Brentford away, Ipswich at home, Fulham away, Everton at home, and then it gets into Liverpool at home. After this week, he'll probably drop out of my list just because the fixtures get worse as time goes on. But yeah, I don't mind him, to be honest. It depends what your chip strategy is as well, I guess, because one of those good fixtures is in game week 34. So if you're free hitting, then it makes him a little bit worse of an option. If you're not, it makes him a little bit better. So yeah, I don't mind him, but you just got to kind of know that the fixtures do get pretty rough towards the end of the season.
Yeah. And then another man who, I mean, he's in a similar category to Cucurella, but I think, people just seem a lot more enamoured with the fact he's a City player, and that's Gvardiol. Kind of as nailed as it gets in the City defence. And then, the double in 33. Is Gvardiol someone, that you'd consider bringing in? I think, with the Gabriel injury, probably makes a lot of sense.
I think so, yeah. I mean, he was on my wildcard team, so I've got him in my team. Yeah. The fixtures are just good. I mean, if you're on a free hit 34, then the fixtures are good right up until the end of the season, to be honest. Yeah. Like you say, he is one of the more nailed guys in that City team, and we do want this City coverage, really, given that they do double in 33, and it's pretty hard to. I mean, after Marmoush and Gvardiol, it's pretty tough to pick anyone else that's going to be nailed enough. So yeah, I think he's almost a must-have, to be honest.
Yeah. I think you're right. I mean, that City coverage is going to be especially important. If you're free hitting in 34, there is nothing you want more than a City player, because they have that double in 33, which is Everton and Villa, and then they have a probable double in 36, which is Southampton and Bournemouth. So if you're free hitting in 34, these City players are going to be set and forgets until pretty much the end of the season. Which given how many doubles and blanks and people playing bench boost, you're going to need a lot of transfers. So, assets like City, like especially City defenders during that stretch, who you can just set and leave, will be very valuable in that sense. So yeah, I mean, Gvardiol is definitely someone, because I understand a lot of people have this Gabriel injury, and you're more looking for a patch job than point chasing, because you ideally want to save as much transfers as possible. The Gvardiol transfer will really assist you as far as minimizing future transfers goes.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean that concludes the defenders section, the premium and the cheap. Let us know what you think of our lists. Let us know if there's anyone we missed, and we will see you again for the midfielders. Right, welcome back to the midfielder segment now. We will get started straight away with cheap mids, and we will get started straight away with Brad finally seeing the light and putting Kluivert ahead of Semenyo. Now, it is worth mentioning that Kluivert did miss Bournemouth's game. I mean, it was a very late game time decision, which was made after our previous FPL player rankings. But, given it's a game time decision, I think we can probably trust that he starts again next game.
Yeah.
And, I mean, there's a bit of risk attached to it, but, I think if it was something on the level of the severity where he misses a couple weeks, I think Iraola probably would have just said that rather than saying, we're going to see how he is on the day. In that sense, is Kluivert someone you bring in still?
I don't think I'd bring him in, but I don't. Yeah. If you've got him, I don't think you need to worry about him, to be honest.
Yeah.
The reason I wouldn't bring him in though is just because within the next, like, West Ham away is a good fixture this week. After that, the fixtures are average, and there isn't any double. They don't have a double, so that's kind of where I'm at with it. I think you need to be, if you're doing transfers and looking at a wildcard team, etc. I think you just need to be looking at doublers. Caveat that with, if you've got a free hit in 34, if you haven't, then maybe you can look at these Bournemouth guys. But in terms of Kluivert over Semenyo, I think I'm just higher on Kluivert's minutes than I previously have been. I've always thought that Semenyo will get all the minutes, which he does, to be fair, and that Kluivert will be a 70-minute guy. I think that's just changed slightly, and I think that Kluivert does just get a bit more minutes now, and with those pens, it's probably worth the extra funds.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's where I land on the Bournemouth guys as well. Is if you're free hitting in 34, then you probably don't need him. But if you're not free hitting in 34, that United at home fixture could definitely be quite tasty for Bournemouth attackers. So yeah, I mean their fixtures aren't bad up until then. As Brad mentioned, they've got West Ham at home, Fulham at home, Crystal Palace, and then Man United. But then, from 35 onwards, it does take a bit of a turn. They got Arsenal, then Villa, then City. So, just, be aware that if he's definitely a hold, and especially a hold if you're not free hitting in 34. But if you're bringing him in, those games beyond 34 get a bit dicey. So, just be a bit hesitant there. And then also, so Martinelli. Now, Brad has Martinelli in his list. I am a bit hesitant, and that is just because I don't completely trust the minutes for Martinelli. I mean, with Saka back, they've still got Trossard. Nwaneri's been balling out, so I am just a bit concerned about Martinelli's minutes.
I also am a bit concerned about Martinelli's minutes as well, but I just think the fixtures are really good, and I think that anyone outside Saka, I think that Martinelli is the next in favour. So I think he'll get the next most minutes. He might even get more minutes than Saka, to be honest, in the league anyway. But I just think that he probably is the guy that gets picked most of the time, which doesn't mean he probably won't start every game. He probably will come off as a sub. But I think those fixtures, again, especially if you're free hitting in 34, I think the fixtures are just really, really good. So it could be worth a risk like that, especially now Gabriel's injured as well. You could... doubling up on Arsenal defence isn't as easy.
Yeah, and I think that's where I land on it. There's every chance that Martinelli gets the lion's share of all those minutes, but if you are going to take that risk, it is important to have bench cover. It's a high risk, high reward strategy, but it's completely in everyone's hands. And now leading on to another player who is also a great option if you are not free hitting in 34, and that is Elanga. The man is on absolute. You've heard me and Brad, juicing Forest attackers the whole time. Be it Wood, be it Gibbs White, be it Elanga. I just think they're fantastic. Elanga at the minute seems to be, you know, the one to go for. Just because of his price, and he's balling out of control. And also, that fixture in 34, that Brentford at home, leading on from Aston Villa, then Everton, then Spurs, Brentford, Palace, and then Leicester, and then West Ham. The fixtures don't get much better for Forest till the end of the season, really.
Yeah, the fixtures are seriously good, to be fair. I mean, they don't double, so if you are free hitting in 34, then it's quite hard to go for these guys, but they'll be nice on free hit in 34 because it's Brentford at home, and then after that, you will want to look at bringing them in, because Leicester at home, West Ham away in 36 and 37, and even Palace away in 35. Just really nice, considering how well Forest, well, not even how well Forest play now, just how good Forest are in general.
Yeah, exactly. So, I think just based on value, Elanga probably the one to go for there. There's not much to split him and Gibbs White in terms of potential output. So, value-wise, I'd give Elanga the nod personally.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so Neto, again, so where Brad had Martinelli, I've got Neto, and that's, a similar risky play. Now Madueke's back. We know Maresca has been rotating as wingers all season. It's very hard to pin them down. But now Neto seems to get the start. I think the only reason I've included him in there is just, that potential bite at Chelsea's great run of fixtures.
Neto should get the starts every week, because Neto is quite clearly the best winger they've got, but Maresca just doesn't seem to take that into account at all. Like, even when Neto doesn't start, he comes on and he's their best player pretty much, excluding Palmer at points. But he's way better than the other wingers, so he should be playing most games. So minutes wise, he maybe Maresca does see that, maybe he will be fine. But yeah, there is a risk with Madueke and Sancho around.
Yeah, 100%. And then, so another one we just wanted to touch on quickly. So, we mentioned before, if you are free hitting in 34, then, City players are a great option. And, I saw a lot of people, especially those who are wildcarding, a lot of people went for Foden. Now, Foden, the way I see it, and I'm pretty sure Brad sees the same, all of them are going to be subject to rotation, be it Foden, Grealish, Savinho. But it's Savinho that I want to talk about as a sort of honourable mention. So he's hard to recommend or include in the list because he is, so subject to rotation. But if you are going to take the risk, like kind of Foden is, why not go Savinho?
Yeah, I mean that was exactly my thinking on my wildcard last week. There's Marmoush and Gvardiol were locked in my team. I wanted Triple City because they double in 33. They had a lovely fixture against Leicester in 30, and their fixture's just great all season. So I wanted Triple City. Gvardiol and Marmoush were locks, and then I wanted a third. That third is always going to be pretty risky. The safest option probably would have been Ruben Diaz, but that's just ridiculously boring. And there's also a chance that he gets rotated as well. So I wanted no part of that. So then I wanted to take a risk on a mid, and I'd rather spend whatever Savinho is, 6.2. Yeah, I'd rather risk that amount than risk 9.2 on Foden when I think they're both just as much of a risk. So yeah, I do like Savinho. Yeah. That's why I went with him on wildcard. I think he's a great pick. But yeah, he won't start every game. None of them.
Yeah, and also at the moment, I mean, it's really hard to say that Foden's potential output is even that much higher than Savinho's at all. I mean, let alone a 3 million odd difference. So yeah, in that sense, I think you're right. I agree with you. It's quite hard to justify. And so moving on to premium mids now. Finally, this section has got a bit more juice, and that is the return of Saka, just in time for Arsenal's great run of fixtures. Any reason not to bring Saka in at the moment?
Yes, I think so. For me, I nearly went with Saka on wildcard as well. I really did. I was pretty close to it, but I didn't think he'd start in game week 30. I could have brought him in and benched him in game week 30 because I had Murphy, and Murphy would have been the guy that played, and that would have been fine. But it's not just it's not just that week. Like the fixtures. So I've got the fixtures here before. Well, who's their game week 33 first fixture?
Ipswich. They got Ipswich away.
So before Ipswich, they've got Everton this weekend. Then they've got Real Madrid. Then they've got Brentford. Then they've got Real Madrid. Like if Saka's, I can't see Saka starting all 4. Or then obviously they've got Ipswich after Real Madrid. So 5 games. I can't see Saka starting all 5 of those. You'd think he'd start both the Real Madrid ones. Yep. So that to me means he doesn't get all the minutes in the Premier League. Could be wrong. Maybe he does just play every single game, of course, but I'm not so sure that is the case. So that's why I decided to wait on him, and I'll likely bring him in 33, but that's why I didn't start with him.
Yeah, I think it's hard to disagree with that. I think where we see his minutes managed, I think personally he will start them, but I think we see his minutes get managed a lot more in the Premier League. So either hooked off early in the second half, something along those lines. Just because, and I mean, granted he has come back from injury, but Liverpool pretty much run away with the league. Now, if Arsenal were hot on Liverpool's heels, I think there is a lot more reason to, play Saka every minute and squeeze, every bit you can out of him. But, with Liverpool having wrapped up the league, I think they probably err on the side of caution in terms of his health. So, yeah, I mean, great option, but yeah, I think the Champions League is probably where we're going to see Arsenal invest most of their effort. And then, so leading on to a man who was suspended and just come back, and that's Anthony Gordon. I mean, again, we mentioned Newcastle Dublin. We mentioned how good Newcastle's fixtures are. And also Newcastle seems to be in a decent run of form at the moment. So Gordon slotting right back in. Yeah. Could be, I understand a lot of people sold him because he was suspended. So in that sense, he probably works out as a pretty good differential option now.
Mm-hmm. Again, another one that I really, really did consider on wildcard. I really did try and find a way to fit him in, just because again I had a team that could bench him, but again just too expensive. Although I do think if I was playing a wildcard this week, I probably would try and find a way to get him in, just because you go Isak depending on his fitness, but you go Isak, you go Gordon, and then one of the defenders, and I think that's quite good. I think he is fantastic. There's not really much. There's not really much to say about him. The double's good. He's brilliant. This week's fixture's very good. Is it Leicester?
Yeah.
Leicester. Yeah. So just a great option.
And also, where every other team is blanking in 34, Newcastle have Ipswich at home. So whether you're chasing the double and trying to insulate yourself from 34, Newcastle options right now are just as hot property as it gets. So, Gordon, by far the second best attacking option on that team. So, yeah, absolutely no reason not to get Gordon. And congrats if you did hold him, because you are coming into the phase now where, you should start reaping those rewards.
Mm-hmm.
And so, we did just touch on Savinho, but I think, it does lead us on to Foden. Now, we don't need to go into too much detail because we just have with Savinho, but I mean, the outlook's pretty bleak for Foden at the minute, isn't it? I mean, I think his price point is just... a lot of people brought him in, but I think at his price, it's just hard to justify.
Yeah, I completely agree. Looking at the last 4 Premier League games, he started 1. And that's just rough. I mean, before that, he started quite a lot, but I don't know. There's not much to say about him. Like I said in the Savinho thing, I think if you're going to take a risk on a City player that isn't nailed, don't spend 9.2 million on that spot.
Yeah, exactly, and that's why you'll see Foden, continuously slip down our lists. Especially if he keeps racking up non-starts. Mm-hmm. And then a final touch point. Now, he's another player who's been slipping down our list is Luis Diaz. Now, I mean, Diaz did get a return. He does seem to be getting a decent amount of starts. I think my only problem for Diaz now is, Jota's back, Gakpo's back, there's a lot of pressure to be playing Chiesa. And, Jota's actually just scored, the winning goal in the Merseyside derby. So, I mean, the outlook is just too bleak for Diaz's minutes.
Yeah. I don't like Diaz's minutes, to be honest. I think that Diaz gets a lot of unnecessary hate, especially from Liverpool fans. They seem to want him sold like every other window. But I think he's just very good. But I can't see him starting every single game. So yeah, that's all there is to it really.
Yeah. So yeah, that rounds out the midfielder segment. Let us know what you think of our list. Let us know if there's anyone we missed, and we will see you again for the forwards. Right, welcome back to the forward segment, and we will get started straight away with the return to the top of our lists of a previous favourite of mine and Brad's, and that is João Pedro. As we mentioned before, Brighton are in great form, scoring lots of goals. I mean, bit of a hiccup last game, but, other than that, they've been great. João Pedro has 3 goals and an assist in his last 5, and his minutes look secure. Is he back?
I think so. Yeah, I absolutely think so. I think the only reason that he wasn't top of our list is because of the minutes concerns, which were warranted because he did not start some games. But Ruta's injured. Welbeck seems to keep not playing games, so I don't see João Pedro is just fantastic value, ridiculous value at 5.6. He's on penalties, plays for a half decent team. And he's just a very good footballer.
More than half decent, especially with that fixture run.
Yeah, the fixtures are great. Yeah.
Yeah, and especially game week 34, not West Ham at home. That's even, it's great if you're not on free hit, but it's also potential good territory if you are on free hit. That West Ham at home fixture. No offense, but
you're right. It's facts.
And then so also now moving on to another man who seems to be in similar territory, Evan Nilsson. So, he did get a return last game, but Bournemouth's attack seems to be stumbling a tiny bit. And, given that he's not on penalties, I think, compared to someone, that does just put him below someone like a João Pedro.
I think when Kluivert's not on the pitch, he is on penalties, right? But that isn't very often. So, yeah, they're just... again... fantastic player. Minutes look quite good. Playing for a good team, albeit they have lost 4 and drawn 1 in their last 5. But yeah, their fixtures just aren't as good as other teams. I mean, they don't have a double. Their fixtures, when you need them to be, are just okay. Like this week's fixture, West Ham is good. Besides that, they're just okay. But again, there's a bit of a lack of options in the budget forward territory at the moment.
Yeah, and it's that lack of options which is why you see Cunha quite high up both of our lists. Now he does have, I believe it's one more game to serve, less his suspension. Mm-hmm. So which is a shame given that is Ipswich and that's a more than tasty fixture. But once Cunha is back, he has Spurs, United, Leicester. And then City, but then Brighton and Crystal Palace. Now, it's important to mention that in game week 34, Cunha does have Leicester at home. That is as tasty as fixtures get. And again, another excellent candidate for a free hit team. But I think Wolves in general. I mean, we said before they seem to be very predictable given who they're playing. Mm-hmm. If they're playing a good team, they will do badly. And if they're playing a bad team, they will do well. So, in that sense, their assets are pretty safe to predict. And, Cunha is as good as it gets in that department. But if you are going to bring him in, wait a week. But, definitely not a bad option.
I agree. I think that he will, in fact, he'll definitely be number 1 or number 2 in our list next week. For sure. He is just a great option when he's available. The biggest risk of him is probably just a random rash or a red card again. Like that will happen probably. Whether it happens again this season, I don't know. But he seems to have some weird temper thing.
I think he's a bit frustrated that he's playing for Wolves. I mean, he's said in the media before that he does want to move on. He does want the next challenge. So he's just got to see out this season in a relegation battle. And I think he's probably a bit pissed off about that, or at least to some degree, it's meant his ego has got out of control, that might affect his temperament a bit. Mm-hmm. He's a very big fish in a very small pond in that sense. But Cunha from next week, an absolutely fantastic option, and that's why you see him at 4 for us. And then Vardy. I mean, there's actually one guy in my league who has had Vardy all season for whatever reason, but Brad's prediction about Vardy's minutes being managed have finally 30 weeks later come to fruition.
I don't even think it was actually his minutes being managed that he came off either. I think it was more a tactical thing because he came off at half time. But yeah, I mean, he's just a quite good option. He's not really good enough to pick, but out of like budget forwards who you're not going to pick, he's probably the best one, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
He's just an okay option, but you just probably wouldn't end up picking him unless they had like a ridiculous run, which they don't.
Yeah. But he has blanked in his last 6. I mean, this list is pretty reflective of quite some quite mid options. And then, I will admit I have also finally come round to dropping Raul. Now, Raul was another player that a lot of people were sort of riding the hot hand on earlier in the season. We're just seeing consistently chunks and chunks get taken out of his minutes. So, he's now completely beyond viability in the FPL sense, I think.
Yeah, it has been for a while.
So yeah, just wanted to give Brad that acknowledgement from me that I've come around to his way of thinking. But anyway, onto one of the more important discussions. So that is happening in the premium section now. This is a debate that I think loads of people have been faced with. For some people, they were able to get both in, but for a lot of people, Mateta and Marmouche has been a hot topic of conversation now. Palace naturally do have more fixtures, albeit slightly more difficult. But, as we mentioned before, City's run until the end of the season is absolutely fantastic. And with Haaland set to miss all of that and Marmouche being as good as he is, it is a very tough call on who to bring in.
Yeah, I did go for both on wildcard, and I did captain Marmouche, actually, which is quite nice. But yeah, what was his XGI yesterday? It was something ridiculous, like 1.68, I think it was. I'm looking at. He had a ridiculous amount of shots. He was just fantastic. Granted, it was against Leicester. But also, I would presume he's on penalties with Haaland out.
Maybe Gundogan if Gundogan's on the pitch.
Yeah, that's a fair point. But yeah, he has some pen share anyway, Marmouche for sure.
Yeah.
So and Haaland's out for a while. So yeah, he's just a ridiculous option at 7.5 million with those fixtures.
Yeah, a fantastic option. I think if you're especially if you're not free hitting in 34, I mean they don't get better options than Marmouche. So yeah, as we said, you can ride. There's a couple of teams you can ride till the end of the season. That's one being City, one being Forest. So yeah, Marmouche is a fantastic option in that sense. Whereas Palace, they do have these doubles, but then their fixtures actually get a bit treacherous. So you might potentially be looking at a transfer out a bit further down the line. And then so speaking of Forest, actually, Chris Wood. Now the latest news we do have on Chris Wood is that Nuno's saying it's up in the air whether Chris Wood will play next game, which means that it's likely not a multi-week absence that we're seeing from Chris Wood, given that he's up in the air for next game. So I think just given how good Forest's run is until the end of the season, and playing in game week 34, Wood is definitely a hold.
Yeah, if you don't have him, there's no rush to buy him. I mean, Aston Villa away isn't even a fantastic fixture in 31. From 32 onwards, though, the fixtures are better than any other team, probably, till the end of the season. If you're not free hitting in 34, then load up on Forest players, basically.
Yep. And, there are plenty of them to load up on. I mean, the defence, you can go for anyone in the defence except for, you probably want Williams over Aina. And then you've got, Elanga, Gibbs, White, Wood. You really are spoilt for choice. You can even throw Sells in goal if you want. There's just so many good options from Forest that it's hard to go wrong there. And it looks like especially given they are chasing Champions League, I think we can be slightly more optimistic about Wood not getting rotated out, because they are still in the hunt. They do still need to win games, so they probably won't be putting their feet up towards the end of the season. So expect Wood to still get the lion's share of those minutes. Mm-hmm. And then that leads us on to another man. So actually due to start in about 10 minutes time, a favourite of Brad's all season, and that is Nicholas Jackson. Now, Nicholas Jackson coming back, it's probably good news for Parma. And Chelsea's fixtures are really good. So is Jackson someone you'd consider bringing? I just think at the moment that there's too many good options at striker between Isak, Marmoush, Wood, and Mateta that I don't really think there's really space to bring Jackson back in.
Yeah, I do agree with you. I don't think there's space. The next 5 fixtures are really good. The 4 after that, well, I say the next 5 actually, that's included in the one tonight, which you can't really consider. So the next 4 fixtures are very good. The 4 after that are very bad. So if you're going to get him, you do need to get him soon, but that doesn't really lend with most people's strategies, given that Chelsea don't double. If you're not free hitting in 34, then maybe go for these Chelsea guys, because the next 4 fixtures are really nice. But you probably just want to go for doublers regardless. So it's tough. He's a good option, but he just isn't good as the others at the moment.
Yeah, and I think that that's where it is for us. There are 4 legitimately really good options at striker. Everyone's attack should pretty much be comprised of 3 out of 4 of them. So there just isn't, even though he's not a bad option with those fixture runs, it's just impossible to justify him above some of the others. So that concludes the striker segment, and indeed the end of this week's FPL player ranking series. Let us know what you think of our list. Let us know if there's anyone we missed, and we will see you again next week.
And that's all for this one. Don't forget to check out ingenuityfantasy.com, and I will see you in the next one. Make sure you like and subscribe.